at this point, I will come back. I'll come back to this slide because of the attendance. We'll come back to it. Just some participation needed there. So I want to talk to you about students' eligibility. So students, so this is for the Caribbean students, those speaking specifically to the Caribbean students. I'll address the other students after. So students must be in 4th form or above and working towards C.S.A.C. if you have not already completed it. If you have completed C.S.A.C., then of course you would have you must have your passing grades in your all of your passes, and of course having math and English. Because the SAT, when you have to prepare for the SAT or study for the SAT or come to the SAT prep course, it is not about relearning maths and English, but the C.S.A.C. level or high school level maths and English would be your basic foundation to come to write in the SAT. But there are some other components that will be added on top of that. So that's why I said if you have already completed C.S.A.C. level, you must have your C.S.A.C. passes. You must have passed maths and English. If you have your passes, for example, and you did not pass maths, you're really going to need to get that maths, because writing the math on the SAT you would not be able to follow. So I always like to reiterate this to students and parents. It would be, I would be doing you an injustice if I were to enroll you in my class and you do not have that pass in maths and English, right? Because it's the SAT prep is also fast-paced. So it's not a class where, you know, if you're just not at that, if you're not at that level yet, you really would not be able to follow. Now, I indicated for as early as 4th form because we know that we have some students who might be high-performing students who might have from even 3rd form levels started preparing for C.S.A.C. So that is also welcome. That's why it starts at 4th form. But when I get 4th or 5th form students, before I enroll them into the class, I always do a proficiency test to ensure that your level at 4th or 5th form is up to standard with what the material or the curriculum, the SAT curriculum. With that said, students are required to have successfully completed their high school tenure to seek admission for U.S. undergraduate studies. So I know many of you are here for, you know, that information. You're into soccer and you want those scholarships. But, you know, to meet those requirements, you also have to ensure that your academics are in check, your grades, your passes, the proof that you have completed high school, it must be there. There is no minimum or maximum age. Why I say that is sometimes we have students who might be young, but they might be high-performing students. They might be a student who is much younger than their high school class, whether 4th or 5th form, but for whatever reason, they just might be a high-performing student and you're moving up a little earlier in the process. There is no stipulation on age. So it all comes down to, you know, requirements. And so the question is, when should students take the SAT? Ideally, the exam should be taken 8 to 12 months prior to your university enrollment. So for example, if you know you want to start school in September, then you should have already started. You should have, at latest, you should have taken your exam, let's say in, so when I say September, I mean follow it, not this September, but the next September, right? September next year. Then it means that at latest, you should have completed your SAT exam by this October or December at latest, right? So you want to get that early because why? There are deadlines, your university deadlines, or, you know, whatever scholarship offers or opportunities, they all have deadlines. So you want to get your SATs completed. The registration deadline for the exam specifically is always 1 month before the scheduled exam date. It's always up until 1 month before. And then the exam dates offered internationally, usually 4 times a year, March, May, October, and December. And recently, due to the pandemic, they would have added in an August. Last year, they added an August exam. There was also a September exam, but those exams came up due to the cancellation of the March and May exams last year. So now this year, they brought back the August exam, and then they have August tentative for next year as well. But generally, by culture, it's recently been more so these 4 months in the year. If you, for whatever reason, have been doing your research and you found that it is more than 4 months, it is because you're looking at the US exam dates. The US exam dates, they would usually occur about 7 times or so a year. But if you're thinking internationally, then this is the consideration. These are the months that you're going to prepare for. And any student, wherever you are, whether it's the Caribbean, whatever international location, this is when you would write your exams. So this is just to give you a little breakdown of the upcoming dates. I would have listed the final 2 for the year, and then the first 2 that would begin in 2022. So you have the October 2nd that is approaching. Of course, you note the deadline, and then you note the score release date. And we have December exam approaching as well. I just about started a class cycle this week for the December exam, but we'll talk more about that. Deadline November, score release date, as you can see, couple days later, December 17th. Then you have the March exam. You're seeing the similarity in terms of 1 month before. But of course, you can register way in advance, but your cutoff is 1 month before. If the 1 month cutoff has passed, you have a few days, but you would have to pay a late registration of about 50 US, around 50 US. So just make a note of that. Exam registration, just to give you an idea, because I know all the students or parents viewing, I know you are, I am hoping and I know that you are researchers by nature. So that is why I'm giving you particular information so that you can also check up on this information yourself. So collegeboard.org is the website to register for the exam. They are the examining body. The exam fee for international students is 98 US. And as I mentioned, when that deadline to pay is that 1 month prior to your exam dates. Just to give you some context, for the Caribbean persons who are here, there are several test centers depending on where you are. So in Trinidad and Tobago, we used to have around 7 or so test centers, but recently, actually just about in the last 2 months, I have seen the reduction in test centers, and my only conclusion is perhaps the pandemic. So we have International School of Port of Spain in Westmoreland, we have Maple Leaf, we have in Petite Valley, we have Presentation College in San Fernando, and then we have St. George's College. Barbados, if anybody here from Barbados, you can see that you have those locations. If anybody is watching from Jamaica, there's about 6 locations in Jamaica. I just named a few just to give some context. Grenada, there's 1 location in Grenada. This is testing center. St. Lucia, 1 as well. Antigua, 1 as well, and the list goes on. I couldn't list everybody. And then wherever you are internationally, it is just about searching up your test center on the collegeboard.org website, or literally go to Google and type in SAT test centers, and Google will give you that exact link that will take you to the search bar on College Board to look for your country and then identify if there's a test center. And if not, most times what students will do is travel to the closest location to complete their exam. The test, when you have to go take your test, you usually go with your exam slip, or we call it the admission ticket, which is what you print out to take with you on the exam. You will take an acceptable photo ID, your passport, your ID. In some instances, a school ID might work if you don't have the above mentioned. It's a paper-based multiple choice exam, so you're not taking pens with you. you are taking pencils, erasers, and of course an approved calculator. The specifications for the calculator, similar to what you use at C.S.A.C level, but the specifications will be identified when you register for the exam. And now, just to talk to you a bit about the prep course. So this is a flyer you might have seen around, but I'm not going to dwell on the flyer. You might have seen this around, but I already told you about myself. What is the branding of my prep course, Premier S.A.T Prep for Caribbean students. Just speaking from that narrative, but I've had international students already, students in the US, etc. And what I like to do with the prep course is really bridge the gap. So from the CXC or C.S.A.C level curriculum, that international curriculum, to the S.A.T curriculum, is very different. So it's important to bridge the gap when we are preparing you for the S.A.T. So just to give you some information on the S.A.T prep. How long is the prep course? It runs for 14 to 16 weeks. So I always like to call that a 3.5 to 4 month duration. I would say usually you would find prep courses that would prep students for about 3 months. Even when I started at the standard that I would have done the research on and seen, but I realized over time 3 months is not always enough to prep students, especially when the S.A.T curriculum or exam changed. They redesigned the S.A.T in March of 2016. So therefore, at that time, after doing some assessments, I realized it was important to increase the class duration, or increase whether by time or by weeks. So that is what I would have worked up to between then to now, to be able to give students maximal prep as they go through the process. And just to give some something that parents ask all the time, what are the days and times of your prep classes? So they are usually on Wednesdays at 6:30 p.m. to 8:30 AST, Atlantic Standard Time. And there are some Thursdays included as well at the same time. So why is taking a prep course important? Well, a prep course will effectively prepare you for with all the necessary strategies for your exam success. Sometimes students go into the planning or prepping blindly, and sometimes there are deficits when you're going into it blindly. Now, if you're studying on your own, I'm not against studying on your own, but if you are studying on your own, you have to ensure that you have the right guidance, right? But if you take a prep course, that is what adds to your preparation. Tutors who have the experience and understand what it would take to get through the right preparation for your exam success. What else the prep course would do? The tutors would really bridge the gap between the US standardized test and the international or Caribbean classroom. The US standardized tests, they are very different from, if we were to speak from a, just for instance, a Caribbean perspective, it is not like C.S.A.C or CAPE level testing. It is very, very different. The timing for the exam is also very different. For the amount of questions you have to complete in a specific time, it's a whole different culture. So when you go into it blindly, you would wonder, there's something that I'm not able to translate, because when I did C.S.A.C or I did CAPE, I did really well, or I managed my time well. And then, but when I'm practicing for the S.A.T or I did the exam, I'm not finishing at all. I don't understand why. Because there is a difference in preparation that's required, and there's a difference in strategy that is required. The examiners expect something else of you as compared to that international or Caribbean education system. It's very different. So that is one of the focuses of the prep class. Just to give you an idea, okay, what is included in the prep class? Of course, over the 14 to 16 weeks, you would get over 30 plus hours in live instruction. So that's a live class online. And then you would also get over 16 hours on-demand video lessons. So those are like pre-recorded lectures and information like that. you'd have access to an online learning platform. So it's not just, hey, students, you join the class, just come on Zoom, I'll drop you an email. You have your own online classroom where all the resources can be found in that one place. So you don't have to worry about trying to dig up in your email to see, okay, when did Miss send this or when did Miss send that? You have everything organized on a learning platform. What you'll get on the learning platform is all your lecture notes and handouts, your question bank or your practice questions, your quizzes, other SAT resources. I also assist students in planning their own personal study schedules. So I know students are very busy. Some students, do so many things. You have training, then you have, you might have extra tutoring for some other subjects or whatever. And I help the students. Once my students come to me, I would kind of get an idea of their schedule and give recommendations for, all right, with what you're doing, you need to give X amount of hours to SAT practice. So this is what you're going to do. And then I hold the students accountable to that. Also motivation and mentorship content. And what I recently added to my offering is giving, which is a giveaway, giving students full access to the material for up to 6 months. So sometimes a student might join the class cycle and something came up and they felt that at the end of the cycle, drawing closer to the exam, they were not fully ready because they lost track somewhere along the way in balancing their studies and so on. And they say, okay, I'm going to defer this exam and wait two months again to write the following exam, 2 to 3 months to write the following exam. So what I do for the students is I allow the students to still have that access to all the materials online, going back to the class recordings and everything that will assist them in the process. And all of this is really to foster that student-centeredness. So just, I know this is a question that persons ask a lot or parents or students ask a lot. Just for protocol sakes, I do not discuss the tuition on presentation calls. So if you would want information about what's the cost of the SAT prep, I prefer that you call me or send me a message and we would liaise from there. Something else I'd like to mention as it relates to the SAT prep tuition is that I offer need-based scholarships. What do I mean by that? Over the years, I have encountered a lot of gifted and talented students, athletic students, track and field students, the soccer students, whoever. And in some instances, they might not have been able to afford the course because of whatever is their situation at the time. And I would have been able to offer those students partial tuition, which means that they don't pay the full. Again, that's why it's need-based, based on the student's need. In some instances, I've offered some student athletes full tuition into the class. And that is my way of giving back to my Caribbean community. I know it's not easy, for everyone. And, we all go through different circumstances. And I would hate not to be able to be a part of the process to give an opportunity to a student that student might really be needing that opportunity to take the next step, right? Or go to the next level of their journey. So I really try to assist students as best as possible based on need in that way. And I am an advocate of sports. So I do that as much as I can for athletic-based, students, whatever sport you're into. We have a chat, we go through the process of why and how I can assist, and then we take it from there. Other services, just to give you an idea of some other things that I do. Of course, I also deal with students who are just purely academic based in terms of the SAT prep. So I would assist students. Some students need help with university application. Some students need career guidance because they know that they want to go to the US to study or to university, but they are not sure what to study just yet. So I also offer career guidance, university guidance, student mentorship or coaching, and from time to time seminars, and free seminars just to assist in the process. Just two that I would have done for the year. For example, Pathways to Medical School. I did that earlier in the year and had over 100 and so students from all over the Caribbean. And I did that because Pathways to Medical School, that is very close to my heart, as I would have mentioned earlier, that I am a medical student. I've tried and tested the system. I have applied to schools in so many different places. So I felt it was only right to be able to share with students that you might be looking at a particular place as your first choice. They might say no to you, but it does not mean that all is lost. You do have other options. And a lot of times I feel like, you know, as young people, we feel like if plan A doesn't work, then we are doomed. I was there when my plan A didn't work and I felt like I was useless. I felt like school was not for me. When I did not get into my choices after sixth form, I felt like, well, this just not for me. School is just not for me. And you know, I had to recognize that, you know, having those plan B's and C's and D's and so on is what will make the difference. So your pathway doesn't have to look like the other person's pathway, but just know that once you keep pushing, even if you have to utilize a plan C and your best friend or good friend you got through with their plan A, it doesn't mean that you would not succeed or get to where you need to go. So I always want to remind students of that. I think these days, young people, you know, sometimes you want to give up too easy. You want the first choice, but the first choice would not always be everybody's portion. I had my last choice for SEA or common entrance. My last choice. Many times I felt like every choice I'm getting is last. Even when in the midst of it, I succeeded at certain points, I always felt like, why am I just getting these last choices? But I'm truly a testament that, you know, if you keep pushing and, you know, you keep pressing, you will definitely see the light. You would see that you're getting there, and you'd realize that the story that you have to share, you realize your story will liberate and empower others. And then another seminar I had recently was on college, just general college admissions, nothing to do with sports scholarships or anything like that. Just general college admissions from a college admissions officer in the US who was born and raised in Trinidad and Tobago. And then I also offer still some level of chemistry tutoring at CSEC or CAPE level if I'm able to with my busy schedule. So that is pretty much just, you know, everything that I just said: mentorship and coaching, application assistance. From time to time, I share information with persons who want to complete master's degrees. So this might more be suitable to the parents in here or well-wishers. And this is my information to stay in touch. If you'd like to reach out to me, you can call or WhatsApp me at the number. So this is the time you might want to screenshot, take a screenshot or so. There's my email, and the Facebook page for I Am Legacy International is, you just type in literally I Am Legacy International on Facebook or at I Am Leg INTL, and you would find the page online. So we are pretty much at the end of the presentations.